Hey guys, welcome back to the Real Results Show, where we feature real health coaches and health practitioners getting real health results for their clients and themselves. As always, I'm your host, Brendan Vermeyer. I'm a clinical advisor for FDN and the director of our tribe's awesome association, where we get to support the community with ongoing education regarding a variety of different business and clinical topics. So this week, I'm really excited to have my good friend Kathleen DiChiara on the show, and we're going to be talking all about FDN and longevity. So Kathleen, welcome so much to the show here.
Thank you so much. I love being here.
Absolutely. We have fun with this show every week. So certainly for those of you that are tuning in at the moment, thanks for being here. But also keep in mind, if you want to learn more about the FDN program, you can always type in aspiring, just all caps, one word, aspiring, to learn more. But Kathleen, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Oh, we can go anywhere.
We can. That's true.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Okay. I thought we would talk a little bit about regenerative health, because that's kind of where I'm at now, just in my career. And, I have a new book coming out at the beginning of next year. But that's sort of where my journey with FDN has taken me. So it's kind of a nice place for me to talk with practitioners about, and how I think that might be different than why I started FDN. It's kind of an interesting beginning and an end point, I guess, for me, or there really is no end. So maybe where I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us a little bit about why you're so passionate about, regenerative type health-based programs, because certainly anti-aging medicine, regenerative medicine, that is a huge and exploding area. I feel like there's all sorts of kind of regenerative clinics popping up left and right. But tell us, what does that mean to you and why you're so passionate about it?
Yeah, so it means, you're right. It means different things to different people. When I started, when I started with FDN, I was disabled, permanently disabled for life at age 35. And I became a practitioner because I was desperate to look under the hood, so to speak, and see what it was that was prohibiting me from getting well. And when I ran my adrenal tests and saw that I wasn't producing any cortisol, I had actually been on high doses of morphine for many years because I had had a back surgery that failed and left me permanently disabled for life. So let's just put it this way. I needed the pain medication then. There was no amount of turmeric that was going to solve the problem I was in, So it was certainly, I was in a very acute and severe predicament for many, many years. But unfortunately, there's no way to get patients out of that predicament. So you sort of stay in that, you're managing chronic disease and you're managing chronic pain. So I had very, very severe chronic pain that then led to other very debilitating fibromyalgia, chronic pain syndrome, very systemic pain. And essentially my system was shutting down because you can't do that for very long and survive. And I knew that, and I could feel that. I could feel that I was essentially dying inside. So the medical system was wonderful. They did want to help me, but they didn't really have the tools for me. So I was desperate, and so I, from my own bed, started taking the course so that I could save my own life. And so I could, and there it was in black and white that I was, my hormones were not functioning, and metabolically I was completely in disarray. I was not only not producing any morning cortisol, I was lower than the lowest low. I had when people are supposed to have a little spike in the morning, I was not just flatlining, I was zero. I was below zero. And it was just clear to me that there was just going to be no way for me to get out of that loop if I didn't have that kind of information. And so that was really a critical piece for me. But fast forward, once I got out of that, I didn't really know I sort of stayed in a disease management state. I called it holistically managing disease. So I got really good at perfecting the diet and cleaning up the diet and using supplementation and therapies and acupuncture and chiropractic care and physical fitness. My husband and I were always into fitness. I used to do triathlon training, and he was an all-natural bodybuilder. So we were very aware that movement and fitness was really an important part of our life. But I couldn't quite get to a place where I felt strong enough and not vulnerable. So I felt like I was always just one bad move away from crashing. And that I also felt if I took all of those modalities away and all my supplements away, I was essentially still sick underneath the surface. I really wasn't there. And that was a really hard thing to deal with. So that to me was the moment I felt that we really are not regenerating health. And it kind of brought me back to a lot of the principles and teachings that Reed really teaches, which is that we ultimately want to be really focusing on health. Are we getting people to that place where we're looking diagnostically for those healing opportunities, but ultimately, are we really getting people to a place where they're focused on health? We're not really dealing with the underpinnings of disease, but we're building health from that foundation. And it always comes back to what we know to be true, which is how we live our life and the practices by which we live. So the book that I have coming out next year really talks more deeply about what our belief systems are, the behaviors by which we live, and in essence, the microbiome is a reflection of that. So oftentimes we try to do it the other way around, which is, let's fix the microbiome so that we can be healthy. But what I'm saying is it's less of a maker of health as much as a marker of health. So if we do the other things, we shift our mindset and change our behaviors, then our microbiome responds accordingly. Now, clinically, we can do both ways, but ultimately, long-term sustainable health, we really want to get people to move in the direction of, building health. So I feel strongly about that. And I do a lot of work with regenerative health agriculture,
Cool.
farming practices. And so a lot of the model, when you look at that model, when you look at the land and when you look at regenerative health practices in farming, you see the same similarities in terms of how you would rebuild the land and how you rebuild health for humans. So that was really ties us together. I know it's pretty intense. Yeah.
No, I loved every second of that story, and I loved how you tied a nice organic ribbon on it at the end with the regenerative farming. Well, because it makes perfect sense, right? That's something I always like to try to teach people. Is like, well, we don't heal the body. It's more like we try to remove the things that are preventing the body from doing what it already knows how to do, which is fix itself. And usually there's all these obstructing factors and hidden stressors, whether it's something very, tangible, like a parasitic infection, or it's more psycho-emotional, like you're speaking to with, what's that story that we're telling ourselves that's really just painting ourselves into a psycho-emotional corner and preventing our neuroplasticity from, rewiring that's going to help us, shape our physiology and rebuild the health, because the cells, old, damaged, diseased, chaotic cells, well, they have to be removed and cleared out and new cells take its place. And so it's just like that regenerative farming.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. It's a process.
See, I was picking up what you were putting down.
You totally. You're ready. Yeah. And I mean, I think what's really nice for people to understand is that you can do it at any time and at any age. I think that, it isn't, I think we can get discouraged that things can get really bad. And, for me, it was like, no, this is, you're going to get a Social Security check and be disabled for life. And, that's a really hard thing to hear. And it can really play on you in terms of whether or not you have that capacity. Cause I'm not young, and I didn't have youth on my side. And I thought, well, is my body really capable of deep healing? And the answer is yes, it absolutely is. We can regenerate and restore, and our cells, our body does know how to heal. And I think that that's really promising. And I just think it's important for people to acknowledge that the people in the world, I mean, we have just such a sick population now, and they are asking really for guidance, and they're really asking for that support, that practical application of it. And I think so often we are chasing the next quick thing or the next big fix. And, there's such a need, I think, for people to understand the application of it in the daily life, because I really think that that's where people are getting lost, and they're sort of jumping from one thing to the next, as opposed to staying on the true north of the things that are consistently going to make that difference and really move that needle. And they're losing their faith in the things that we know to be true, that are consistently true, that ultimately they will come back to. And so I think what's nice about FDN is that we in essence have a way to check, is this going to be the most effective place for us to start for you, or is this working or not working, and give the people those touch points and those check-in points, but also to help, in many cases, people to acknowledge that the things that they are doing are really effective. So I never did testing up front. I asked people to make dietary and lifestyle changes first, because I sort of knew that, people who were willing to do that were going to be really willing to work with me. I didn't really want people to go through the exercise of running tests and then looking at a test and saying, oh, I have a food sensitivity, I'm just going to take that food out and that'll be the end of it, because ultimately that's really not what we want. So if people were really willing to make changes, and then without any data on paper, they really were willing to do that, I said, okay, that they have that courage to really stay and they want to do that. And then look for those markers, and then people could really look more deeply at their individual aspects of health later.
Totally. You just brought up several really good points. I will attempt to remember them.
Okay.
But you're talking about how people are losing faith in the power of the basics, because we're so instant gratification addicted and looking for the quick fix. That's our society. Our world is very high speed, very instantaneous. I want that dopamine and I want it right now.
Yeah.
And I think that, in conjunction with just the pure level of just metabolic chaos that plagues our society, and that's where I look at the chronic disease epidemic. It's my personal opinion. I look at it as a environment and lifestyle driven epidemic. And I mean, frankly, the scientific evidence really supports that. But nonetheless, that's where, I think sometimes people who are these FDNs and who do they think they are running labs or whatever? And it's like, okay, well, guys, medical doctors allopathically treat disease, and they study disease and epidemiology and how can we treat that with pharmaceuticals and surgery, which obviously, what an amazing ultimate safety net that you and I are both very grateful for.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, it's like, okay, well, we are objective data driven, client-centered health coaches. And as you said, you brought up another valuable point that I wanted to touch on is, how does, let's say, a functional medicine physician use testing different than an FDN practitioner? And that's where it's like, well, I mean, it depends on, I'm not going to make any assumptions or generalizations, but I would say, generally speaking, because FDNs are really holistic health coaches using objective data to guide the health building process, that's different than functional medicine, which is still more allopathically treating disease. And they're not using the testing as much as a health coaching tool the way we are, where we can show them test by retest of hey, even though it's not sexy to talk about the basics of nutrition or sleep or stress management or exercise, but if we can objectively show you that that is actually helping rebuild your health, because guys, a 90-day gut protocol, that's great. But gut health is a lifestyle, not a protocol. Detoxification is a lifestyle, not a protocol. So we have to break, there's the majority of our society oh, what pill do I take to feel better? Well, that's not enough. But then even the functional medicine of, okay, well, I need a fancy functional medicine 60, 90, 120-day protocol. It's like, you don't need a protocol. You need behavior and lifestyle modification,
Right.
long term.
Yes, that's true. And I also think that depends on where people are in the healing process. I think for some people, if they are
spectrum.
Yeah, it is a spectrum, and it also is in their capacity to engage in what their support systems are. So I think in some cases people do better with that protocol. I don't think protocols are the right way to go, but let's just give someone the benefit of the doubt and say, they're in a particular situation where they are having difficulty coping. They don't have a good support structure at home. They have multifaceted chronic illness, and going in to see a functional medicine practitioner who implements a very strict, maybe 60 or 90-day protocol is exactly what they need, because it's so regimented and so strict and so tight and so disciplined and specific and whatever, that's what they need at that time. And then that's sort of the bridge that gets them to a place where they then work with an FDN practitioner who implements long-term life strategies. So I just feel like there's no one is better than the other, or right or wrong. It's just, what is it that the person needs at that time? And ultimately, where are we going to get everybody to a place where, we're out of this epidemic of chronic disease? And we're raising children now that 54% of the population right now and children have chronic disease. So I had a child, my oldest had profound developmental disabilities. And so I speak at conferences now where children have ADHD and autism, which I've been doing for almost 6 years. And then I also was the chair of a board for a nonprofit where we served over 40,000 people with special healthcare needs. So it is something that I've always served the special needs community. And I think that in addition to special needs, we also now have this other branch of chronically ill children, medically ill children, children with allergies, children with really severe metabolic issues, things that we haven't really seen before, that it just needs to be dealt with. It's so incredible that if we don't deal with it, then all of those children are going into their high school and young adult and adult life already with chronic disease. So that's ultimately what was happening even in our own family. And so we broke that cycle through my own experience. It really took my illness for us to see that what we were experiencing here, we were a young family expecting to raise happy, healthy children. We have 3 boys. And we then looked through my own experience right down the line and said, our boys are on the trajectory where they will ultimately end up chronically ill. And we stopped that. So that was something. So we reversed 21 chronic diseases in our family of 5 using this lifestyle model. And that was, And so when I started FDN, I stopped in the middle of my training. I finished the training. I didn't even take my exam. There's a big gap there because we ended up doing a documentary film during that process. And that's why. And so sometimes people will say to me, oh, Kathleen, I don't know if I should do the program. I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I'm ready to go out and help people or become a health coach. I don't know if the timing is right. And my answer is always, it's never the right time. Life is busy. Life is hard. You don't know if things are going to come up. If this is something that you feel passionate about, or you really want to get into the health field, you just do it. And I had to take a hiatus, and that's okay. I still had all that knowledge. I was still so educated, and so all those principles were there, and I couldn't practice because I wasn't certified. But when I got certified, when I was ready to go back and finish the process, it was all ready and waiting for me there, right? And so I took my exam, finished the certification, and I was off and running. So you don't have to have the perfect timing, the perfect situation, all the cards lined up. So I think it's really important for people to recognize that too. I was sick when I was doing it. We ended up having another baby while I was doing it. I think I was pregnant during, so I mean, things happen, and you just keep on rolling forward. And I just want to encourage people too, because I know that it can be overwhelming when you're considering, getting involved and wanting to be in the field and getting involved in health coaching and becoming a practitioner. I just think that it comes up a lot. People ask me a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And, first off, what a remarkable story, but you're so right where, it really is. I kind of picture it as like a healthcare spectrum. If you've got conventional medicine on one side and more like generic health coaching on the other side. And I don't say that to be mean, just generic as in it's not objective, data driven. It's not individualized. There's not that deeper level, whereas the FDN, it's kind of that hybrid. We are somewhere between a functional medicine physician and your health coach. And believe me, I mean, the average AFDNP member, like I'm very well connected with a lot of functional medicine people. And I firmly believe like your average AFDNP member is just as well educated and intelligent. We just have a different style of how we look at it and how we guide clients towards health. But how remarkable that 11 chronic diseases out of, a family of 5
21.
using or 21.
21.
I can't even do the math on that. Like I'm trying to 21 divided by 5 is like 4 point something.
I think I had the largest
holy
percentage.
cow.
Yeah, I think I had myself and my oldest son had quite a bit, but severe allergies and eczema and psoriasis, and we had it all. I mean, we literally had it all. And
wow.
But here's what's really interesting about this, and this is really important. It's very important. When we were going through that, it was so obvious to me that we were just like every other family. That what we were going through, because we on the outside, we looked like we had it all together. And I said to myself, if I can make this list and I can say my son is covered in chronic eczema and my middle son has bronchitis, and my husband had developed a benign breast tumor called gynecomastia, which is very common. I'm sure you've talked with other FDN practitioners about male health. And so I was going down those fibromyalgia, chronic pain syndrome. And I'm thinking to myself, everyone has these things. I mean, I see it on intake forms. I know you do too, right? I mean, so I'm thinking to myself, we're not the only ones. Like this is happening in every single household. And the reality is that it's just stacking up because we're just saying, well, it's common. Everyone else has it. I mean, this is just what's going on. This is part of the aging process, or it's normal for kids to have allergies or things like that. And the fact of the matter is it's not normal. It's not normal at all. And you don't have to live like that. And we have to stop tolerating it. And so, I said, this is ridiculous. And there's no reason for our children to be living like this. And there's no reason why we should be telling them that they need to tolerate it at all. It's not normal. And you just put an end to it. And you really just have to encourage families that they absolutely do not have to tolerate that. They can have an extraordinary, healthy life. They can model that behavior for their families. And we just decided that we were going to set some values about what it means to be healthy. How do we define healthy? What does it look like in our house? And so I just think it's a mindset that as a practitioner, you're really talking to people in a different way and you're encouraging them in a different way. And then you're giving them a different set of tools and a support that provides that kind of a roadmap. So my practice looks a little bit different than it used to, but I think I sort of missed those days at the beginning when it was just a couple of people and you had that nice feedback loop, when you worked with like a small group. And I think that's such a precious, valuable time. I'm sure you would agree too, Brendan, that is like the sweet spot because you're getting such valuable data when you work with people at the beginning and you work with somebody and you get, an opportunity to do testing and you get that feedback loop. I mean, that's like your own little study there. It's just incredible. And I would just encourage people in the beginning stages to not miss, to not overlook that period there. That is such an incredible learning time. And that's everything because that is just sets your foundation going forward for what it is and what you're good at and what you love about the work that you're doing. And then you just build from there.
I love all that.
Yeah.
And I think you're so right, where people do need to, I really look at chronic disease epidemic, the health crisis that our world and nation is in. I really worry about kind of this unconscious consumer syndrome, as I like to call it. I just made that up literally, but really it's like, well, hey, look, we all have the power of free choice and nobody can really take that from us. But just because you have free choice doesn't mean that you're fully aware of the destructive behaviors that you might be expressing day in and day out. And so if you just kind of go along with the unconscious consumer lifestyle, you go along with what mainstream media and society tells you of how you should live, what you should eat, how you should believe your health. Well, you are there's no emotion tied to this. You are statistically inclined to become overweight, develop chronic disease, become depressed, be on multiple medications. Like that's statistics, so that's where everybody has to make that choice. And so I think what you're saying is very important, where people need to understand those, symptoms are common, but they are not normal. And a symptom is one thing, a health complaint is another thing. And ultimately that can cascade into a diagnosis of some kind. But nonetheless, it's time to kind of stop and break the cycle of trial and error. And talking about, longevity and regenerative health building, as long as your cell is, or as long as your body's making new cells, like you can heal and you can get better. And if you're breathing, your body is regenerating cells. So it's never too late.
That's right.
I'd love to hear more about when your book is coming out and where can people learn more about you, get in touch with you, all the above.
Yeah. So and I would also say too, before I say that, your point about the body regenerating itself. The other thing that I really noticed too was the timing of that. I used to think that the healing process was so time consuming and lengthy, and you needed to do these things for years and years and years. And what I realized was when you were heading in the right direction, it's actually really fast. That the healing it can be. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's like this rapid speed, and that if you're not having fast healing, that you're not moving in the right direction. But what I would say though is that oftentimes it is not this very prolonged suffering where you have to go at it and keep building it. And I would see people, 5 years later, and they're on another protocol and another plan, and another thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't think what you're doing's working. Like it's, no.
How's that working for you? It's my favorit question to ask in a consult.
And but that people stay so dedicated to this idea that, it has to be so time consuming. And what I realized was that no, it actually, the body is very quick to respond. So I just think it's really worth mentioning, because that was just something that I really, really eventually saw and was able to see consistently, not just from myself, but for other people. And to just even remind myself at times too, when I'm kind of stuck in that loop, to say, you know what, Kathleen, you're looking in the wrong places. You're ignoring the elephant in the room. You know exactly what's holding you back right now, and you just you're just not doing it. So my book will be published with Hay House, and that comes out on February 18th, 2020. Awesome. So it can be pre-ordered now on Amazon. It's called End Chronic Disease, The Beliefs, Behaviors, and Bacteria, The Healing Power of Our Beliefs, Behaviors, and Bacteria.
I love
so it's that. Kind of that. Yeah, so it's kind of that feedback loop, that our beliefs drive our daily behavior, and our behaviors ultimately drive our ecosystem. And then so people can pre-order that now if they're interested, but it'll come out officially on the 18th of February. And then my website is just my name, is Kathleen DiChiara, and I give lectures, all over the world, really, mostly the United States, because I have 3 little kids, so I don't travel too far if I don't have to. And I'll be at the NOFA conference in January. So that's in Massachusetts, and that's the Northeast Organic Farming Association. I teach an intensive for them, which is 3 90-minute sessions, so it's broken down. So that'll be nice. And then I'll be at Autism One in Chicago in May. So those are two large conferences. I do a lot of small conferences in between, but those are like larger, big, huge audiences. So people can come and see lots of really great keynotes and big speakers too. Yeah. And so I post different events on my website and social media. And I always love when people come and engage in conversation at conferences and attend lectures. It's usually very interactive, and I teach. My practice now is through what's called Nutritional Intelligence Academy. So that's the model that I use now to teach. I teach CEs and CMEs to medical professionals and chiropractors at different conferences. I get hired to teach, to give other medical professionals their CEs in nutrition, ironically. And so yay for FDNs. And then, so I really love the teaching model. I feel that ultimately the parents and people at home need to understand what it means to live a healthy lifestyle, and they cannot be overly reliant on practitioners to solve that problem. So I started the Nutritional Intelligence Academy to teach people what it looks like to foster health in their own home and become the healers in their own home, and to model that for their own children so they could hand that down, so they could hand down these deep principles, because we don't have a lot of community. We're not really learning from each other in community anymore. And nobody can teach that to your children better than you can, because it's so dynamic. It's something that happens in the home. It's modeled in the home. So if parents can feel confident in doing that, then I think it's just a gift that lasts forever, because it's really done through love and compassion and caring and gentleness and trust. And I just feel that it's just a wonderful thing. And I think all FDNs are really doing that. But I just can't do it fast enough one-on-one. So I started the academy so I could do it more, like I could see more people fast, volume. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Trying to reach as many people as we can. Well, I'm very proud of you. I think you're doing outstanding work. I can't wait to see your book when it comes out in February.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
So
great.
certainly for everybody watching tonight, thanks for tuning in. Again, you can put aspiring, all caps, one word, if you want to learn more about the FDN course. You can always schedule an appointment with one of our course counselors, decide, is this the right career path and community for you? So if any of the convo that Kathleen and I have had tonight resonates with you, it might be for you. But Kathleen, can't say enough good things about the work you're doing, and I'm really grateful that you came on the show tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Brendan. I really appreciate it. I love all of you, and it's just a pleasure for me to be part of the community. So yeah.
Well, we all love you. It's a beautiful family that we have. So I certainly hope you and everybody in attendance has a beautiful holiday season here, and then we'll be starting back with Real Results Show in 2020. So Thanks again, Kathleen, and I hope you have a beautiful night.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.